Next on Hear It Now, the growing industry of tree farming in Newfoundland, a production of Land and Sea. Anyone involved in Newfoundland's logging industry usually cuts wood on land owned by the Crown or one of the paper companies. But something new is coming on the scene. Some people on the West Coast are starting to farm trees on their own property. Land and Sea's Dave Quinton visited one of those tree farmers in Bay St. George. He has this report for Hear It Now.
Here in Newfoundland, the forests seem limitless. Great stretches of spruce and fir, a green wilderness, enough timber you'd think to last forever. But look closely. Our forests are not in great shape. A lot of the wood is dead, the trees devastated by disease and insect attacks and forest fires. We've suffered too from years of reckless cutting and mismanagement. The forest is not the inexhaustible resource we once thought it to be. Some foresters are worried about future supplies of wood. Will there be enough pulpwood to keep our mills operating? Studies predict a shortfall in about 10 years. And what about our supply of saw logs? Already, Newfoundland imports 2/3 of its lumber requirements. Obviously, we've got to look to the future. And that's just what some Newfoundlanders are bent on doing out here in St. George's Bay. Planting seedlings, reforestation. It's grown into quite a little industry in itself. A lot of young Newfoundlanders are now trained, skilled silvicultural workers, planting spruce and pine seedlings for government and industry. Last year, nearly 8 million young trees were set out on cutovers, burns, and clearings all over the island. Private woodlot owners are getting into the act too, thanks to a government-sponsored private woodlot management program. Forestry technician Dick Brake oversees the project.
We've just recently signed up our 50th woodlot owner, and we've planted in the neighborhood of 1 million trees, and we've done quite a bit of pre-commercial thinning and the clearing of insect damaged stands. And we have some woodlot owners interested in Christmas tree cultivation now. They've actually started into cultivation.
Well, I can see Christmas trees paying off in a few years because it doesn't take long to grow them. But are people really planning to grow trees for pulpwood and saw logs?
Yeah, well, you know, forest management is certainly a long-term investment, if you want to look at it as an investment. And most of these owners will not reap the benefits of their management, but their children and grandchildren will. You know, and I tell woodlot owners it's something like buying life insurance. It's a very unselfish thing to do. You're doing it for somebody else, but somebody will benefit, and more than likely somebody in your family and certainly in your community. So you're investing in the future for others is what woodlot management's all about.
The crackle of a fire, the roar of a chainsaw, hardly the images most people have of forest management and stand improvement. Yet here in Newfoundland, thinning out a forest can be as important as the planting of seedlings. And in certain areas where the forest is in really poor shape, you must cut and start all over again. Woodlot owner Don Tompkins explains.
This is a spot here, it's 1 hectare, 2.4 acres, and it's been clear cut. So when everything is cut off it'll be piled and burnt, and then it'll be set out with new seedlings. That'll be, of course, be next year. What we like about this way of doing the clear cutting is it's all labor. The young fellow you see up there, he's cutting and piling and burning it. Normally he would just cut it and leave it there, and then would be raked up by a heavy bulldozer D6 with heavy rake, and it would disturb the natural soil conditions we have here. This way it makes it more, makes it better for the new seedlings to be planted, and I'm sure they do well under these conditions rather than having planted after raking.
So there's a fair amount of money to be earned under this program?
Yes, the young fellow that's cutting this area here, he'll receive just about $900 to $1,000 for the hectare. And as you can see, he got a fair amount already done. Now, this is a family affair. He has 2 young fellows, or teenagers, and after school is out, they come and help him. And of course, it's quite a pleasure for them to come pile and burn, as you might know. I suspect there's an odd bit of cooking down there.
Don Tompkins is keen and enthusiastic about the woodlot management program. It's incredible to think that he's being paid to thin, to cut, and to plant on his own land. Protected from the elements by the light slash, these seedlings will one day be saw logs. He may not see these trees mature, but he thrills to the knowledge that another generation will. It's a long-range investment, but Don can make a much quicker profit from his forest land by growing Christmas trees.
This is a Scotch pine and was planted a year ago. You're looking at 1 year's growth. With this area here, there's probably about 50 trees planted here. They're planted purposely for Christmas trees, or what may be Christmas trees. And you can see just how much they grew in 1 year. When it was planted, it was an 8-inch tree, and now you're looking at it's a little better than 18 inches.
Now, most Christmas trees are fir trees, or at least they have been until now. I see you're changing it a bit.
Well, this is here we are, but over Nova Scotia, the trees that they export down to the United States, and it's called a cash crop. There's quite a lucrative business going on over in the Antigonish area. I keep tabs on that each year, and we could possibly generate a market from this area.
So you think we will eventually be having pine trees as Christmas trees?
Could happen. With a little marketing procedure, we could make a good dollar cash crop, if you might call it, exporting some Christmas trees. This, on our part, is a little bit of an experiment to see how well they'll do.
I see.
I believe Dick will agree in about 5 years they could be up to Christmas tree size, and the larger they get, of course, the price is better. But I believe when we get to 5 feet, the going price is around $20 per tree, or 30.
Little seedlings soon grow into trees. A few years and you have a cash crop. Over here in Nova Scotia, they've been at it for generations, planting, pruning, and harvesting Christmas trees. It's an industry that's never really caught on in Newfoundland. They have advantages over there in Nova Scotia, of course, a bigger market, both at home and in the sprawling USA, which lies next door. A few years ago, a young Newfoundland forester, born and raised in St. George's Bay, settled down in Nova Scotia and became involved in tree farming, here near Digby. Harold Alexander, originally of Kippens.
Well, this is a place, Dave, that a cutover, more or less, or an area that wasn't stocked very well with, commercial trees, that we decided to develop a Christmas tree lot on. And we've gone with mostly balsam fir, which is a natural tree here in Nova Scotia, and makes a very beautiful Christmas tree, and is a very marketable tree. And this lot here that you see has been developed for between 6 and 8 years, probably, that we've put a lot of work into this, and you can see the results here now.
These are ready to be cut now, I guess, are they?
Some of these trees. You manage it on a continuous basis so that you have some trees to cut every year, and you have some young trees coming along that, will be the trees in future years. This tree here is probably in the order of 10 years old or so. It's probably been sheared 3 to 4 times and fertilized 3 to 4 times or more. Maybe it's had a little bit of weed control around it. It's been butt pruned so that, your bottom set of limbs is your best set. And this tree is ready for market this year, and it's got a blue tag to show that it's the #1 tree for our particular operation anyway. And we would probably market this tree right on the stump to a U-pick goer or a choose and cut goer, somebody who comes and chooses their own tree, for about $15 or so.
And can this happen in Newfoundland now? Can we do the same kind of thing in Newfoundland?
Well, I don't think there's any question you can. We don't have as many moose over here as you have in Newfoundland, and I know that moose love eating fir trees.
Yeah.
And but if in an area where you could get away from that problem, I don't think there's any question you could grow trees like that in Newfoundland.
But Christmas trees are only part of the story. Most of the trees on this woodlot will be sold as saw logs. Just look how straight and tall these trees grow. Years of thinning, cutting, pruning, planting are beginning to pay off. Nova Scotians have been farming trees for generations. Most of the forest land there is privately owned, so the pulp mills and sawmill operators depend on these woodlots for their raw material. As in Newfoundland, woodlot owners receive about $1,000 a hectare to manage their forests. The main difference is they've been at it long enough to see the results.
This is the end result of what we're trying to do in the kind of forest that we have in this area. This is the size of trees that we're trying to produce, saw log size that will make, 2x8s and 2x10s, and more or less the highest value product you can get out of a red spruce tree. And this tree is in the order probably 70 to 80 years old, and it's pretty well timed as far as we can see to cut this particular tree and some of the others that you see in this stand.
So this is a perfect saw log then, right now?
Yes, it's probably as close to perfect as you can get. It could stand to be a little bit bigger, but it's a good size. You know, roughly 12 inches at breast height,
and whatever length you want.
And whatever, yeah, it's probably over 60 feet tall, you know, so it's a good sized tree.
Now, can we do the same thing in Newfoundland, though? Conditions are not quite as good for growing there, but I guess we can come close.
I don't think there's any problem. I've seen a lot of trees just about that size in Newfoundland. I think there's not as many now as there used to be, but I think they can be there again if they really work at it.
Back home in Newfoundland, this concept is beginning to catch on.
And Dick, this nice stand of new growth here, what are you going to recommend that we will do with this now?
A woodlot owner and a forestry man cruising the land, discussing how it should be managed, treating the trees as crops to be nurtured and eventually harvested. On some parts of the land, Don Tompkins and Dick Brake agree they should clear cut and plant. But here, thinning would obviously do the job.
Very thick, aren't they?
Yes, they're too thick, John. It's restricting the growth there.
And so out here in western Newfoundland, landowners are being encouraged to manage their land, to farm trees. It's a new concept. It's a long-range investment, and it will never solve the problems of a diminishing supply of wood. But it is being welcomed by many as a step in the right direction, and one that will encourage us all to look at our forest resources in a new way.
And as Dave said, a long-term investment, but it just might pay off. Now, here's a brief look at an item we'll have on tomorrow's Here and Now.